Hello and welcome. I'm your host, William Liu. I'm joined by co-host Alex Wong. This is a Hello and Welcome podcast presented by Betway. We are still out here in LA, and you never know who you run into in LA. You know what I mean? Because it's a big city.
Yeah,
You
never know who's gonna pull up to this Airbnb at an undisclosed location in a fresh pair of white cement Jordan 3s. This man needs no introduction, man. Keith Pompey of the Philly Inquirer is here joining us.
Friend of the program.
Yeah, Philly, the 76ers are a mess again for the 10th straight year. So we're going to get messy here today, talk about all of that. Keith, man, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. As long as y'all don't ask me to answer or spell any or pronounce any Raptors names, we're good.
Yeah. Don't worry. Trust me, the Raptors roster has only become more obscure since the last time we spoke on air, at least. But okay, we got to get to it. The big headline out of Philly right now is what happened in the locker room. I can't believe that this is something that, ended up being a national headline. But then again, you're from Philadelphia. Strange stories happen, especially with the Sixers. You were in the locker room. This is one of your coworkers. Obviously, you've covered Joel Embiid his whole career. Take us through what happened between Marcus Hayes and Joel Embiid.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think that it was a little bit of frustration on both. Well, I'm not going to say both sides. It was just a little frustration probably with Joel. And actually, I wasn't there because I was actually talking to Kyle Lowry at the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because Kyle just reached a milestone, so I was talking to him. But, I mean, just give you the backstory. It's just that, Marcus has been writing columns about Joel, and he basically, said that, Joel needs to come back to play and this and that. But he mentioned his son's name, and his son is named after, Joel's late brother. So Joel took exception to that, and I think that's how it happened. But I also think that, it was one of those things where when you look at the Sixers record, the team was struggling. People get heated, and I think Joel did take offense to it, but it's one of those things where we have to realize that, this season isn't going the way that a lot of people expect it to, and sometimes you lash out.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing too, like looking at this and like coming at it from just like player media kind of relations like perspective, like I'm curious too, like did Marcus and Joel like have kind of like a working relationship to the point where like they could have just talked about this instead of, I know Joel had kind of mentioned Marcus's name like a couple days before the incident happened and things like that. Like, was there a relationship there?
I'm not 100% sure how much of a relation it was, but I know they knew each other. I mean, like, Marcus goes back to, longer than when they played the Raptors in 2019 in the second round of the playoffs. Marcus was the guy who grills people. He asks, really good questions. So they, everyone knows that's what Marcus does. I'm not, so it's one of those things where I don't know how close they were, but let's just say they know of each other. They know of each other a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's an interesting conversation here about sort of just how some of this information is being discussed, because the Sixers got in a bit of hot water, right? They got fined $100K over the disclosure of Joel Embiid's injury status, and I think that's leading to a lot of this frustration. I think the bulk of what Marcus said, obviously, whatever we know, mentioning family members is like way too far, but I think what he really wanted to say was just we need more clear communication as to whether or not our star player is going to be available, especially if you're missing a bunch of home games. Why do you think the Sixers have been like hiding this, or like why do you think the information has gone out in this way that's made it so frustrating?
No, that's a great question, because I think what happens is, I think that nowadays in this instance the player has so much power to whereas the player really doesn't want everything out, or the player keeps updating the team, and I think that they knew something, but they figured it out. They found out the information later on than it was. Because, and the reason why I'm saying this is because there's been many a times where you talk to, okay, prime example, we were in Utah a couple years ago, and during the but pregame press conference, Doc Rivers is asked is Joel Embiid playing tonight? And Doc was like, yeah, he's going to play. And then soon afterwards, we find out that Joel's not playing.
Okay.
So I think a lot of it is people are waiting to figure out how Joel feels, right? Now, they always say it's a collaborative effort, but it's basically Joel, like Nick Nurse may think Joel's going to play, he's not going to play, he's going to come back. And then at the 11th hour, they get the information. Same example, there's been several times where they thought Joel was not going to play. And Joel says, nah, I'm going to give it a go today. I'm going to give it a go. So, it's one of those things where, you think in a timely fashion that maybe they should have been a little bit more transparent, right? And they weren't. But based off of how things have been in the past and based off of the sources I talked to, it's kind of like a lot of people were waiting to see how Joel felt about playing and this and that. And I'm here to tell you, like, he does not want to come back until he's 100%, just because he felt as if he rushed back before.
Right.
And he doesn't want to do it again.
That's fair. We've seen Joel play through injuries. I think that's the part where when Joel was expressing his dissatisfaction, he's like, we've seen him in the playoffs, man. Half his face was like, you know what I mean? Like, it was falling off, and it was like, I'm still going to try to play and represent. So I think in fairness to Joel, like, he's felt that way too. But at the same time, I think people see him play in the Olympics. He's okay to play in the Olympics. Then we don't see him for 2 months, and all of a sudden he's not available. So obviously things could happen in the offseason. There's always frustration with the Sixers. So I got asked, how are our boys doing, man? Our Toronto boys, Nick Nurse and Kyle Lowry.
It's funny because when we were in Toronto, I don't know if you were at the press conference, and someone said the pregame, when someone said, how's Kyle doing?
That was me. I asked him that. That was me, yeah.
So, that's Kyle. That's Kyle.
He said he was moody. Nick said he was moody.
He's moody. They're doing well. I don't think, like, the good thing about having Kyle is that, he's been in the league for so long. He's a guy that you can go to when they're struggling, and he'll be straight up with you and say, look, this is what we need to do. He's not going to sugarcoat things, right? But I also think that Kyle is great to be in the locker room because, Nick has a unique coaching style, right? A unique way of communicating with people at times. But Kyle's been there, so Kyle could be the guy that, like, look, man, everything's fine.
Yeah, Nick Nurse translator.
Kind of like Nick Nurse translator. But they're doing okay. But again, they've had better days. I mean, the Sixers are 1-6. They've had better days.
Yeah, we were just looking at those photoshops.
Oh yeah, you showed us a Photoshop.
Getting busy on Photoshop.
So you were saying that like people are turning on Nick Nurse a little bit here this season.
I think it's kind of unfair. Like when you look at the fans and they do things. Well, here's the thing: when Nick Nurse was hired, of all the candidates, Nick Nurse was the one guy that everybody wanted. He won the championship. He won 2 G League titles. He won titles like overseas in England. So a lot of people were excited. But then right now, I think a lot of people don't know that he's a coach. His 3 stars are down. Literally, all 3 of them going to miss at least 5 games. All 3 of them. We're talking about Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and Paul George. And Nick Nurse is out there trying to tinker with the lineup to see what works, right? And he doesn't have the roster that he had in Toronto. Let's face it, they're top heavy. So they're going to struggle a little bit and they're going to figure things out. But I think people in Philadelphia, some of them are just getting a little bit impatient because of that.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. If you look at that roster, once you take away like Embiid, Maxey, Paul George missed some time to start the season. Like, there's not a great roster after that. So I'm pretty surprised. Like, I guess I'm not surprised because like I feel like Philly fans just have this kind of pent up anger, or just like there's been like so much buildup over like just like Embiid's whole career here, and it seems like they've kind of, this was supposed to be a year where they kind of reloaded the roster, brought in Paul George, and yeah, I can't even think of a more disastrous start for them like than this right now. But I do still feel like once Embiid comes back, if they're able to get everyone healthy, I feel like they're going to turn it around. Because we talk a lot about Philly and Milwaukee. Those are the 2 teams that have gotten to really slow starts, not meet expectations. I still think Philly has time to turn it around, whereas Milwaukee, I don't think that roster is going to be able to turn it around.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Now, I don't know if the Sixers will be able to be a 3 seed or a 2 seed. I think that may be tough. But I think they could be the 5 seed. And here's the thing with the 76ers. So the way you look at it, Tyrese Maxey is a great player. He's the league's most improved player. But a lot of his success comes being the second or third option to Joel, right? And as much as Joel keeps calling Tyrese the franchise, the Sixers are a much better team with him, especially the way this team is made up, right, with the shooters and everything like that. And what that will do is when you have Paul George, who could do some ball handling, he could be a two-way player. We all know what Joel can do in the paint. And then you have Tyrese Maxey going 100 miles an hour, scooting up and down the court. That's going to be tough for teams to defend. But right now, like you said about this roster, we look at it. So when you have this second apron, you have the salary cap, you have whatever, and a lot of teams do not want to go and get 3 max players because they'll be in a situation where the Sixers are. So now the Sixers have 3 max players. They have 3 players making around $8 million, and then one guy making 5, and the rest of them are on minimums, right? So when you have minimums, you have a guy like Kyle Lowry, who is a champion, but he's 38 years old. You have a guy like Eric Gordon who can shoot the ball, but he's 36 and he played for a long time. And then you have other guys who are unproven, right? But now you have to ask these guys to go ahead and be the alpha dog or do this or be Maxey's co-star, and that's just not their makeup right now. But I do believe when you bring Joel around and then you have, okay, Eric, we need you to come in and knock down the 3, well, he can do that.
Yeah.
So I think they will get better when Joel comes back. But I think that they're in such a big hole, and you look at a team like Cleveland, who's playing
They're rolling.
And then you see the Knicks, if the Knicks can get that together. And, there's a couple other teams. I don't know if the Sixers are going to be that squad that's going to win like 20 in a row to go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to be the number 2 seed.
Because even when Embiid comes back, he's already said they're not playing back-to-back. He's not playing back-to-backs, right?
And this is the thing that people, like, I know the comparison there with Nick is like, well, he managed the load management situation with Kawhi perfectly. Well, what happened with that was the Raptors fans, we didn't mind Kawhi load managing because the Raptors were 17-5 in the games he missed. So it's like, all right, cool. He's not here. We're still winning. Other guy's going to step up, right? But then it feels like in the Philadelphia's case, if Embiid doesn't play, the team's just not good.
Yeah.
Or hasn't got enough continuity. Obviously, they just brought in Paul George. A lot of these other guys are newer or they're rookies or they're old or whatever. And that makes it a lot harder. Now that puts a lot of pressure on Joel to be there because you guys were already in the play-in. Sixers already in the play-in last year. I mean, whatever. They got through that, no problem. But, like, still, you just don't want to be in the same situation again.
I mean, but the same thing is completely different, more so than that. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, when they first on the load managed, they started on back-to-backs.
That's it.
So he basically played in the beginning of the season. So then you look at the guys who were on that roster, right? So I know they made the trade for Marc Gasol, but you already had legitimate players.
Yeah.
I mean, you had, like, look at Pascal. He was the 5th starter, and he ended up being the most improved player. Fred was the guy coming off the bench, right? Danny Green, a champion, a guy who's known for, knocking down big shots. Kyle was an all-star. He was in the midst of being a 6-time all-star. He was a leader. He was, tenacious defender. So, I mean,
Serge Ibaka.
Yeah, Serge
Even
coming
JV.
off the bench.
Norman Powell coming off the bench.
Norman
man.
Powell.
That team was
so
crazy.
that team, that's why I said a lot of people, I think they mean well when they try to draw these comparisons, but I think it's also a knock at how good that Toronto Raptors team was.
Fair enough.
You know what I mean? Because they had a lot of players.
Yeah, it just shows, I think, it's like, I mean, we've seen this throughout, like, Embiid's career. It's really hard to build a team around a guy who's just not going to be available a lot. And I think Joel's getting to a point of his career now, too. And it's weird to me. I feel like, obviously, I know everybody knows it's like, oh, the Sixers haven't made it past the second round, like, in this era and stuff. But it's like, weirdly, they're like the team with almost, like, the most pressure, even though they've, like, haven't even made it past the second round. And it feels like Joel's just getting more impatient in terms of, like, yo, this has to be the year. Like, this has to be a year, but then he has to balance all this stuff. Anyway, it's just bad vibes coming out of Philadelphia, Keith.
Well, you know what? The one thing I will commend Joel for finally saying, you know what? It's not about regular season stats. It's
But
about.
it took him like 10 seasons to get there, though.
But I think that's also kind of hard too. I feel like, I mean, here's the thing we got to realize about Joel, and it does. You're right. It did take him a long time, but here's the one thing.
It took a decade.
But I'm not gonna taking up from him, but I'm just going to be real.
Yeah.
So a lot of these guys who, let's just say, DeMar DeRozan. I'm just going to compare him because an American.
Sure, yeah.
You know, he was in California. He was one of the state's top players. Like him, it was him and James Harden that year. He was a McDonald's All-American. You know, everyone knew that he was going to be like a one and done, go to the league. He was the man. No one knew who Joel Embiid was. Like he wasn't on the. I mean, you know, he was a 7-footer who was living in Florida, who moved to the States from Africa, but they didn't know it. So I think sometimes what happened is you start getting that notoriety. People start telling you how much you're the man, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I want to win the scoring title. Yeah, I want to put up video game numbers, right? And then after a while you realize like, but my legacy is I can't get out the second round. My legacy is when people think of me, like every time when somebody's critical of him, how many times have you guys seen that video of him walking in Toronto's arena after the game crying, going to the locker room?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Go-to meme.
Yeah. So it's one of those things. So I kind of like feel like, yes, he knows finally what his legacy is all about. And now it's like, it's time for me to sacrifice. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I want to see it because it's easy for him to come out and say it. And then all of a sudden, like, I got 55 points. Do I want to stay in and go for 65?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see. But you're right. It took a long time. But at the same time, he's finally getting there.
Yeah. Well, even listen, you know, full transparency. Joel's not that popular in Toronto, but at the same time, you know, if the Sixers do eventually have some success, you know, people will be happy for Nick, especially happy for Kyle as well. You know how much it means for Kyle to come back to Toronto. I don't know if you guys spoke about that, but he was obviously in Toronto recently. And I guess my last question before this, because I actually wanted to come back after a break and talk about just how much strangeness you've been around with the Sixers, because there's been a lot of strange headlines.
Yeah.
My last question is, like, how much longer is Kyle going to play?
You know, I asked him that, and he was like, "Oh, I'm not saying." You know how Kyle is. I mean, I think that
He's in year 19.
Year 19.
Damn.
You know, it's weird. If it was me, I would try to go straight 20.
Sure.
Depending on how much I have left, right? I mean, and the thing is, let's keep it real. You know, Kyle, even if he doesn't, if he's not impactful on the court, he makes an impact in the locker room.
Yeah, for sure.
And again, like we could talk about it, and he won a championship with Nick Nurse. And if I'm Nick Nurse, that's the guy I want in my locker room.
Right,
you know
right.
what I mean?
Right.
And unfortunately for the Sixers, and fortunately for Cal, they don't have a better pure point guard.
No, not right now. No.
Not right now. They don't.
No.
So
yeah. Well, I mean, I know fans want to see like the younger players play it or whatever, but it's like that's not what this team's about. This team's about trying to compete right now. So I mean, like maybe you give Jared McCain a shot. He's probably gonna get a shot here because guys are so banged up. Or Ricky Council the fourth. I don't know.
Not
This
the
guy
fourth.
was learning. We were watching Sixers Clippers the other day. You're like, who is that? You know.
Yeah.
You know, so
Jeff Down Jr. not getting a look.
Jeff Down's
well,
there.
he's going to be. So right now, Kyle is going to be the starter. Reggie Jackson, who wasn't in the rotation,
right,
is now going to be in the rotation.
Right.
And then Jeff Doughton is going to be, you know, activated now, and he's going to be, you know, available. And now, and again, he's another guy who makes smart plays and does certain things, but it just seems like, you know, is always set up for somebody else to come in and take his spot. You know.
Yeah, that's how it was in Toronto as well. But that's what happens, though. It really is what happens. Like, unless the team drafts you and signs you to a big contract, they're not as invested in you. So you're probably the first guy that's going to take a couple hits. But we're going to take a quick break because when we come back, we want to go through some more crazy Sixers storylines because there's this every season, there's at least one. This NBA season marks the Raptors' 30th anniversary, and as the team's official beer partner since day one, Coors Light is celebrating by releasing 3 limited edition cans for Raptors Nation. Each is designed to represent an iconic decade of Coors Light and Raptors history, allowing fans of the North to unlock an era in every can. 30 years in the making, one can for every era. Now, for a limited time only, Canadians can purchase Coors Light Raptors 30th anniversary cans at select LCBO stores and participating bars and restaurants across the GTA, including select locations at Scotiabank Arena.
Check out EraInEveryCan.com. That's ERA in everycan.com to learn more about Coors Light and the Raptors and their long-standing history and the limited edition cans. Plus, fans can enter for a chance to win exclusive Coors Light Raptors prizes, including exclusive team merch designed by Coors Light through their partnership with Mitchell and Ness. So make sure you check out EraInEveryCan.com for more details. All right, Keith, before we wrap up, so I know you told us this when we chatted before too. When did you start covering the Sixers?
The process. The first 2013.
Okay, so you've seen it all.
Wow, you got in at like the worst time.
You've seen it all. So we talked about the Joel Embiid incident led to his 3-game suspension, which is like just in the latest line of just crazy storylines coming out of Philly, like the last 11 years now. So we did compile a quick list. I want to go through this with you. You can kind of let us know kind of what you remember about these characters, these incidents, and I want to get you to rate from 1 out of 10. 1 being it's pretty chill, 10 being like, yo, this is crazy. Bryan Colangelo just got fired because of a Ringer article. Like 1 to 10, we need you to rate all of these, okay?
Okay.
So let's start with Markelle Fultz is drafted first overall and then suddenly forgets how to shoot.
Yeah, that was a crazy situation. But to be honest with y'all, I mean, I don't know how long y'all want me to go into this. It was a crazy situation, but it was also a real situation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, because I'm gonna tell y'all his opening day press conference. So Ben Simmons was drafted before him.
Yep.
The year before him. Ben Simmons rarely showed up around us. He was never around the media. So it's Markelle Fultz press conference day.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone gets there early, and on the side, so like let's just say the stage was right where you guys at.
Sure.
On the left was a basketball court. So Ben Simmons was in there doing shots, hitting the ball, slapping the ball off the backboard and catching it and dunking it. And all of a sudden, all the cameras turned from y'all and shifted that way, right? Now, Markelle wasn't up there yet, but they were up there. And so I said to someone, uh-oh, we're about to be in trouble. I mean, Markelle's about to be in trouble.
Yeah.
Because you knew at that particular point that it was all about Ben Simmons and not Markelle. And I think Markelle mentally had a tough time handling that.
Okay. Did we ever get to the bottom of why he just the jump shot changed?
I mean, a lot of people said it was mental. They were trying to say that he messed his shoulder up. I mean, it was just mental. Yeah.
So out of 10, dealing with the Markelle Fultz era, where does that rank for you? 1 to 10.
That might be 3.
That's a 3.
That's a 3.
Okay.
Number 1 overall pick for against the shoot is a 3.
Yeah,
Sixers is different though.
Yeah,
Philadelphia's
that was
different.
about 3. That was a 3.
Sixers are very
It's only a
different.
3. Damn. All right.
You got any ones you want to throw at them? Or
No,
you want
keep
me to
going,
do
man.
this?
Keep going. You're hosting right now.
Okay, let's go.
That's a lot.
Ben Simmons, I guess this is like a multi-parter, passes up that wide open layup against Atlanta.
Game 7.
They lose. I believe Doc and Joel Embiid go to the presser after and really just throw him under the bus. And then following in training camp, I believe he shows up because he's requested a trade, but he had to show up at the start of training camp. And there was all these photos of him. I think he just had like his phone in his pocket during practice. So that entire Ben Simmons period from that loss to Atlanta and then the trade request training camp.
That was number 1 right there.
So that's a 10.
That's a 10.
Okay.
Yeah, that was 10. Well, when I should say Markelle number 3, that means that was number 7, I guess, or number 8.
Yeah.
But that Ben Simmons thing, that was the crazy one. I mean, it was bad, and in a way, the way, and I understand why he was upset, because just to give y'all a little bit of the backstory, before Doc threw him under the bus, we used to always ask him about Ben not shooting and passing up shots.
Sure.
And Doc would say, you don't know anything about basketball. If you knew about basketball, that was a great play. That was a great play. And then on that one day,
he's like, Keith, let me tell you something about basketball, Keith.
I guess he was so frustrated that he forgot his line. That so then Ben was like,
well, okay.
What? Oh, you threw me on this bus.
Okay.
So yeah, he said, hold my beer. I'm not coming back.
He's like, I'm out of here. I'm getting traded.
That whole situation was crazy.
Yeah.
It was
Damn.
crazy.
Let's stick with. So Ben Simmons gets traded. James Harden comes in, and oh, here we go.
Yo, I love Philadelphia, man.
You know, I thought they're a little honeymoon period at the start, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Daryl
yeah.
Morey shows up, greets him on the, on
Yo,
the
he
tarmac.
daps him up off the plane.
Yeah,
man.
he gets off the tarmac. You know, I remember Harden getting off to a great start in Philly. Like the first couple of weeks,
They were like, "Yo, he can run a pick and roll, man."
Yeah, of course. And then, of course, you get to the playoffs, all that stuff, and then it all ends with him also requesting a trade. And the specifics thing I want to ask you about is he goes on this summer tour with Adidas. He's in China. He goes to China, Hong Kong.
Yeah.
He's calling Daryl Morey a liar in front of these fans.
No, there's just like literally a 1,000 Chinese fans being like, "Yo, we love you, James Harden," and he's like, "I want to be very clear. Daryl Morey is a liar.
He wasn't
and
even
I'll never
asked
work
the question.
with him again."
And then he's at a club, and these bottle service girls come out with this sign that says Daryl Morey's a liar.
In China.
Yeah,
which is
1 out of 10.
crazy.
How crazy was that era?
Yeah, that was. See, it's so many. See, you guys are bringing up a lot of stuff. It's so many things, and that would have to be if the Ben Simmons was.
You can give multiple ones 10s if you want.
Yeah,
like they could be all crazy.
They could both be 10s.
That was. Oh, so you mean 10?
Yeah.
scale.
Yes,
I thought you was just ranking.
just relative.
Oh,
yeah.
ranking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ranking,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
That was like a 10 too because when you think about it, like look
Yeah,
at
you're the dunk contest judge right now. You're like Dominique right now, holding up a 10.
No, then the reason why that was a 10 was because if you look at it, he was supposed to be the guy that make you forget about Ben Simmons. So then,
He does the same
then it
thing.
got to a point. Like after they traded him, like people now were saying, "Hey, do you think we should bring Ben back?" And I'm like, "Nah, y'all don't want Ben back." I mean, because of that
Yeah,
situation.
exactly, yeah.
But yeah, that was crazy because that was supposed to be Daryl's guy.
Yes.
And Daryl was hired, in part because of they felt like he could deliver them.
Sure.
And then James came, and then the whole thing was crazy because James is turning down like money and taking less just so he could get his buddies there.
It's kind of like tampering.
And then-
they got
and
stopped for
then-
tampering too.
They got fined for that,
They
right?
got court. Well, they got court for the. Yeah, they got
For
court-
Daniel House and
Yeah.
PJ Tucker.
But of course it was. They were saying that he didn't. There was no agreement.
Sure.
But
Oh,
yeah,
this
he
is
got
the other
fined.
part of Harden. He also came out when he was mad and was like, "Yo, the Sixers promised me a deal a year
Yeah,
before."
Yeah,
Right,
he was
right,
just
right.
straight throwing them under the bus
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah. So that was a 10. That
That's
was
another
a
10.
That's another 10.
Yeah, I
Two
gotta
10s,
give
man.
that a 10.
Okay, how about when the NBA basically got sick of the Sixers tanking and really worked with I think the Colangelos to
Yeah.
push Sam Hinkie out and bring in Bryan Colangelo as GM, and then Sam Hinkie drops his super long.
He wrote a communist manifesto.
He
after
wrote
that,
a
man.
manifesto. Sam Hinkie getting pushed out of the process.
Yeah, that wasn't a 10. That might have been about a 6 or 7.
He
I
was
guess 7.
You're not feeling that one.
Nah, I mean it was because I'm telling y'all, there's certain things that I'm thinking about, like
Yeah.
Jalil Okafor.
Oh, we're getting there.
Oh,
No,
we'll get there, we'll get there. Oh, Ja's on the
Leave it
list.
to us. We got you.
He's
We
on the
got
a
list,
you.
lot
man.
of different
We
things.
got you.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
got
So I mean, to me, that was like par for the course. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah, of
What
course.
he
But
did.
even the NBA kind of
Did- I
stepping
mean,
in,
I don't
right?
remember the NBA ever coming in and being like, "You guys got to change your GM."
Because tanking was such a huge topic back then. Still
Yeah,
is
yeah.
now, but that was the height of it.
Yeah.
Dude, it was so crazy. I remember one year, it might have been year 2 or year 3. All I know is they were playing the Boston Celtics, and I left my media seat and did a lap around the concourse saying, "Do I still want to cover this?"
You went for a walk.
Went for a walk.
He's like,
Yeah.
how much do I
No,
love this
because-
game?
Do you remember? Can you name like 5 players on that roster at the time?
Yeah, I mean the guys.
what do you mean?
Let me see.
Who,
But
Robert Covington.
so they had. Well, so Cove made it though.
Yeah,
I mean,
Cove made it,
Cove
yeah.
made it. Then they had the one you. So like they had. I always was bringing in different guys. They always were bringing in different guys. So Robert Covington, T.J. McConnell,
Mm. Decent
Nerlens Noel.
Yeah.
Wow.
You can't get to 5.
No.
No, you
I
got
can
this.
get to 5. I can
Yeah,
get
you
to
got
5,
5.
but
You got
I'm
5.
just saying there Jakar Sampson.
Jakar
And then there was a guy by the name of Hollis
Sampson.
Thompson.
Hollis Thompson.
Yeah, Hollis Thompson.
Yeah.
So they had some.
JaVale McGee swung through there a little bit, I believe.
Oh, yeah,
They
he
got him at
did.
the
That
trade
was
deadline.
funny.
Yo.
That was funny. No, that was the funniest thing
Yeah.
of how he got, because JaVale, they wanted him to take a buyout, and he was like, "I'm not going to take a buyout." Right. So that was the thing, he didn't want to take a buyout. So he was giving press conferences. Like whenever he was talking to us, he was like, "Yeah, I'm here to take Nerlens Noel and Joel Embiid under my wing." Next thing you know, he got his money. And he was going.
He's like, I'm gonna teach him what Gilbert Arenas taught me back in the day.
Oh man.
Oh man,
That's
was
amazing.
crazy, yeah.
All right, another executive one. So Bryan Colangelo comes in. Ringer publishes an article basically saying that Colangelo's wife was running a
it was
burner
crazy.
account
Yeah.
on Twitter. This leads to Colangelo leaving the organization.
we haven't even heard from Bryan Colangelo ever since.
Yeah, out of 10.
he's literally out the NBA.
Yeah,
See,
out
I
of
don't want to
10.
give everything a 10, but that was crazy.
That's
too.
a 10.
You
man.
can
Come
give
on,
them.
that's a
You
10.
know you
That's
can
a
give
10.
11s too if you
that
want.
was a crazy. That was a crazy one. But the crazy part is like the account. The people used to like reach out to me.
Oh
Like
really?
the one, oh yeah,
Oh,
man, that was
yeah.
one of my best sources all the time. Yo, it was crazy. Yo, that was one of my best sources. And then look, so when he got caught, I was like,
Damn,
I
pour
was
one
I
out.
was mad. I was like,
Yo.
it was kind of like
Damn.
such and such is going to happen today, and so I would like write it.
Yeah, man.
And like, I mean, at first you would verify it, right?
Yeah, of course,
Get it
of course.
confirmed.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then all right, and then all of a sudden you're like,
Oh, this is a credible source, so
yeah,
you're getting
like,
everything.
Oh, how come nobody's upset? You know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's
Like, yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. I was upset. You
Wow.
You mentioned Jalil Okafor. Believe this all happened in his rookie season.
3 incidences.
So he drove 108 miles an hour in
In a 40.
had
over
a
the bridge.
believe
Over
had,
a bridge. Like damn.
had a gun pulled on him at one point. This was
Yeah,
another
that's
incident that
The
happened.
gun got pulled on him.
And then I remember he got into a bar fight in Boston, and there's video footage of it. Then this is all coming like right when he's like a highly touted draft pick.
He's 3rd overall pick.
Yeah, 3rd overall pick. What was that? Well, out of 10, what was that era like?
You know what? At the time, that was the worst. That was the worst thing that happened.
So another
at that
10?
time, at that time. But you know,
In hindsight, not a 10 anymore.
I mean, because everything else surpassed it.
Yeah,
right?
sure, yeah.
By the way, when did you go for that walk? Like, what was there? Is that
it
early
might
in the
have been
process?
Nah, it might have been season 3
Okay.
Mm.
or
Okay.
season 2. I mean, because it was
Okay, so some of this
season
stuff is
2.
already happening.
This guy's
Yeah,
like, I'm
no,
watching
this was
Tony
season
Roden
2.
as a number 1 option right now, man. Like,
no, it was just because like they were just tanking, and it was just
yeah.
you know you go there.
I get it.
You know, you go there. I mean, I have some things I can share with y'all, but y'all gonna laugh and
No, tell us, man, please.
But,
Please.
you gonna laugh. What was it? So during the process, I'm not gonna say the city because people are gonna figure it out, and I don't want to embarrass the guy because all they gotta do is look up to see where the guy. But what we used to do is when we were on the road, we would just show up for shoot around and go like this to see who was new, right? And it was
Right.
always a new guy. So we're like, so they would bring the guy to us because you know they were just cutting people left and right, bringing guys in for like just to try them out.
10 days.
It wasn't
basically,
even a 10-day back then. It was like, hey, we just signed this
Oh,
dude.
1 day?
No, they was signed because they had so many guys.
Oh yeah.
So they bring in. So they had this one dude, and the dude so like, yo, so what's your name? And the guy said, my name is Hassel. I was like, Hassel? Why they call you Hassel? He said, because I'm a hassle on D. Like a lot of these dudes were like real confident. So
Tell me this isn't
So-
Trenton Hassel.
so the guy comes in the game, and he gets switched on to the other team's star player,
Yeah.
and the guy goes whoop whoop, boom, dunks on him.
Oh man.
So Hassel is like, all right. So he's a point guard. So he gets the ball, he dribbles it up, doesn't pass it to anyone, and fires up an air ball 3. Brett Brown calls timeout, and he goes straight to the bench. And I was just like, whoa. But see, those are the things that you saw during the process days.
Yeah, it
Like, they
wasn't
would
even
always
real
bring
basketball,
people in.
man.
Huh?
It wasn't like even real it wasn't like a real basketball team. Like guys were just coming in and out.
It sounds like a sitcom. This
but
would be
you
a
know
good
what the
sitcom.
The crazy part is some of them turned out to be pretty good. Like
Yeah.
okay, Jakar Sampson ended up playing
He
as
got
a
another
role
couple
player.
contracts.
People forget about Jeremy Grant. Like Jeremy Grant
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
a part of
He's
that.
on a max contract now,
Yeah,
or close
Jeremy
to
Grant
it.
was on.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
Yeah, man.
so there were some guys who made it.
Rashawn
but they-
Holmes.
Yeah, but what they did, Rashawn Holmes played for Sacramento for a little bit. So the thing is, there were certain guys who made it.
Mm-hmm.
It was just that they just weren't trying to win, man. They just weren't. Like T.J. McConnell, look at he's a god in Indiana right now. Like they
Yeah.
adore him, something crazy.
Yeah.
All right, couple more that fall maybe more into the honorable mentions. Actually, these are crazy too. Last year Kelly Oubre, I believe, was hit by a car, and then there's all this speculation that like maybe he didn't.
Why was he trying to get? Was it trying to get covered up, or was it misreported? Like, what happened?
I don't know what happened, man. It was kind of like I
He lost Colangelo's burner.
Nah,
No more sources.
Yo, Colangelo's burner being your source is incredible.
It's like, nah.
Haven't heard Pompey break any news for like 5 years, man.
Nope. It's like nah. That was just a bizarre one. I think it was, but it also is one of those things where we got to be careful sometimes because that it starts like rumors and everything.
Yeah, for sure.
Because people are like analyzing like the camera footage from like
how
his
did
house
TMZ
and
get
everything.
the ring footage, man?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
That's a little too much. It really
Yeah.
crosses the line into like just personal life stuff.
Yeah.
How about this one? Furkan Korkmaz requests a trade multiple times and nobody cares. How many times did he request a trade?
He said, "I'm available."
3 times.
Yo,
trade
we're calling him
requests.
3-time from now.
Yo, him and James Harden tied for trade requests.
I
man.
believe he's back playing overseas now.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? That's what happened.
I mean, yeah.
So was he ever traded?
Yeah, he ended up getting traded.
Oh, he did get traded.
Yeah,
Okay.
they traded him to Indiana last year, and then Indiana waived him.
Yeah.
Oh,
he got-
man.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. So that saga.
That's like a
is wrapped
financial
up.
trade, though. That's not even
Yeah.
like a real
Yeah.
trade.
How about even Al Horford's 1 year in Philadelphia? Yeah.
You know what? That one was you know what? A lot of people criticize Al, but I felt like he wasn't utilized correctly, right?
Okay.
Because it was weird. Everybody said he and Embiid couldn't play together, but whenever Ben Simmons wasn't on the floor, it worked great. So if it was just him and Ben Simmons, and Embiid didn't play, it worked great. I just think the fact that Ben Simmons wasn't a perimeter player, you know what I mean? Like
Right, it's
shooting
hard to
from the
fit.
outside, the spacing was messed up. But Al, people hated him in Philly though. They did because he came there and he didn't, in their eyes, he didn't live up to expectations. But at the same time, I just felt like the way they utilized him was completely different than he was used in Boston.
That's fair. I feel like every year there's got to be one guy that takes all the hits. Like
Yeah.
Tobias Harris was that guy for 3 years running, man.
Yeah, the last one too, like Jimmy Butler, obviously comes to the Sixers. They decide to not bring him back. He later on beats the Sixers in the playoffs, shouts Tobias Harris over me on the way to locker room. Just Jimmy Butler era, and Jimmy coming back to beat the
That was also
Sixers.
such a good team. 2019 team was good.
That was a good team. I mean,
That's
I
the
felt
best
like
Sixers team, I
that
think,
was the
of
best
this
one.
era.
I mean, like we talk about how good that Toronto Raptors team was. The Sixers were right there with them.
Yep.
Yep.
And the biggest shock with everyone was because they kept saying, "We're going to bring them back. We're committed to this group. We're committed to this group," and they weren't. But that era was crazy. Like Jimmy, people forget. Like one thing you didn't bring up is when Jimmy got into a shouting match with the coach on the road with Brett Brown. Now the whole thing is when Jimmy said that stuff about Tobias, I felt like Jimmy was being really unfair because it really wasn't Tobias. Like the thing is, it was when Jimmy was there, and if y'all saw in that playoff, Jimmy was basically the point guard.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Simmons was playing on the block.
He was on the dunker, yeah.
He was on the dunker spot. So whereas Ben wanted to be the point guard, so I felt like they got rid of Jimmy to pave the way for Ben to get his spot back. You know what I mean? But then Tobias ended up getting paid because they got rid of Jimmy.
Right. Man, this whole team, man. You've had a lot of interesting situations. Honestly, Raptors, for the most part, they've been like that, goody two-shoes student. You know what I mean? Generally, nothing really bad happens to the Raptors. Nowadays, we got a Jonte Porter happen, but that's a one-off. That's kind of crazy.
Well, the last, Jonte, and then the one before that would be, was it Keith who asked Nick about his future in coaching?
Oh, that's
and then Nick, let's add that to the list too, man.
Oh my goodness,
that's part of the Philly 76ers lore as well.
Right, because to set the tone, it was Toronto was still in the play-in race at that time.
Yeah, Nick's last season.
It was a frustrating season because I think they expected it to be a 50-win team or something, and they were in the play-in, and they were in Philadelphia pre-game, and I think you just asked him a regular question. It was how you feeling about your future? And then he was like, I don't know. I might have to end up somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then bang.
That sparked the whole thing in Toronto. Everybody turned on him.
Oh yeah,
They were super upset about it.
Come on, man.
Coach still trying to get his team to the playoffs, talking about needing to like reevaluate his future and all this stuff.
Like, bro, there's 5 games left in the season. They could wait 2 weeks. It's just 2 weeks.
People were not happy about that one. Yeah.
Maybe I need some of that money from Daryl Morey.
Yo, you guys need hazard pay as a Sixer fan, as a reporter. You need some hazard pay.
You do a podcast too, still, right? Like how we've seen Daryl come on do on these Sixers podcasts. Like, have you ever reached out to Daryl to do that stuff?
I never asked him. Nah.
That'd be a really cool sit down.
Yeah.
You should ask him these. Actually, you know what? I would love a situation with this. Will never happen, but with the ownership, and just be like, hey. These same 10 questions. These 10 situations.
It's been crazy. I mean, it's crazy. I remember the first time the process. And see, people may get upset by me saying this, but I'll share with you. We were in Indiana once. This is my first year, and so they had 3 guys, and they were like, 2 of them were inactive, and the other one was like, you just knew he wasn't going to play, right? For Indiana. And dude, I watched them work out.
Yeah,
and they might have missed 3 shots between them. So I went to the shooting coach. I was like, "Yo, you mean to tell me they can't play for y'all?" And the guy says, "Bruh, this is the NBA. That ish you covering over there is not the NBA."
Damn.
Yeah,
people were just laughing at the Sixers.
No, Sixers was crazy.
They were
man.
the laughing stock back then. I mean, but, they were the laughing stock. Now they got Joel Embiid out of it. But,
that's true.
But they were the laughing stock. But it was tough. I mean, it was tough for them, tough for the fan base.
It's tough for you. I'm just imagining you walking around the arena right now.
I mean, but it's because it was like you just said to yourself, like, "Heck, this is rough." Like, here they go again.
Yeah.
It probably was the second year because it was like, at first you say, okay, they're going to tank for 1 year, and then the second year
you're like, holy shit, this is a 5-year plan.
We about to tank for 5 years.
Yeah,
like.
it was great. I mean, but
the
thing is, if you think about it, like. That's how, you have to be lucky.
Yeah, you do.
I mean, you look at it, like they got Nerlens Noel, they got Ja Okafor, and that was a crazy too. Like when they drafted 3 centers, in
a row,
consecutive seasons, but then they got Markelle Fultz, and as much as people are critical of him now, he was the guy that everyone was talking about.
He was consensus number 1 pick.
It was even a nice move to trade up at that point, right? Because there was a 3rd pick. Now, of course, it could have been Tatum, but like again,
no. But that's the thing. It's literally one thing. Like if they had gotten Tatum, and it was just Tatum with Embiid, whoever else was around
they just
him.
didn't trade Mikal Bridges, who would have been great for them.
Yeah,
his
but
mom
it's like,
worked for the organization.
Even just Tatum and Embiid, maybe you don't have to go through all this Jimmy Butler, Ben Simmons, like James Harden, now Paul George, like all of this stuff. But no, Keith, I feel like there's going to be still more craziness to come in this era. Like I don't think it's over.
You're not done.
I don't think it's over.
So
like it's never normal in Philadelphia, and it hasn't been.
But that's good from a media perspective. You got more stories.
Nah, I mean, but I think that it's. But see, the thing is, so you have Paul George now. You have Maxey. Maxey is someone that that they could build with, someone that they like. I also think that the difference is that back in the day when they were doing all these things, they didn't have any veterans really.
Right.
So now they have veteran presence. I feel like, yes, what Joel Embiid did, and when we look at it, it seems like, wow. But comparable to things that used to happen, the things that you guys brought up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. None of this is a 10. Even Embiid and Marcus Hayes having this disagreement, that's not a 10. That's not a 10.
Yeah, what's that out of 10 for you? The latest.
I don't know. You know what? I don't know. I just feel like it's. I feel like sometimes we see things like that. Reporters and writers and columnists, they get into it a bit. I just think that emotions were flying at that one. You know what I mean? Like and again, everybody has their right to feel a certain way to something that was written, whatever. But sometimes I wonder. If the 76ers at that time, I think they were 1-4, but if they were 4-1, even though what he said may have offended him or upset him, would that have happened? Like, I don't know.
No, it's true.
It's true. I just don't know. I feel like, right now with the Sixers, we talked about it. There's so much pressure. When you look at the Boston Celtics, you look at the Knicks, you look at Cleveland,
Orlando's pretty good.
Orlando's pretty good.
Yeah.
But even though Boston is the defending champ, even though the Knicks got OG and Mikal Bridges and made that trade for Cat, the pressure is on the Sixers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the pressure's been building, like I've been saying, for however many years now. You can just feel the tension.
This is why, like, if you go through the process, you need like a huge result to justify how much stuff you went through with the process. And I think that, like, you know, we mentioned all this. Like, at the end of the, you know, the storm, there should be a rainbow. And right now, you know, 1-6. We'll see how it goes. But Philadelphia, you know, anytime anything breaks in Philly, we're gonna call you.
We're gonna hit you up.
Appreciate you, Keith. We want to take this break in the podcast to let you know that we are partnering with Tangerine for this season. For people who aren't familiar, Tangerine is the official bank of the Toronto Raptors and its fans, and Tangerine is a foundational partner of NBA Canada and WNBA Canada. Tangerine is focused on growing the game of basketball in the country from the grassroots level all the way up to the pros, and where you will find a court, you will likely find Tangerine. And that's the mission that really resonated with us, because we also share the same goal of growing the game of basketball here in Canada. What you need to know about Tangerine is that they are about forward banking. That means no unfair fees, no overly complicated products, no expensive brick and mortar branches. And if you want to learn more about Tangerine, go to tangerine.ca.
Yeah, let people know where they can find your work, all of that stuff.
You can find my work on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers. The same thing on IG. I have a podcast, Locked On 76ers podcast, but you can also read my stuff. Most of my stuff is in the Philadelphia Inquirer, inquirer.com.
There you go.
Awesome, man. Keith, thank you so much, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks to Keith for joining us, and big thanks to the dog who made lots of sponsored appearances apparently on the background. Big shouts to JYD, and we're out. This has been the Hello Uncle podcast. We'll see you next episode.